Hey everybody, welcome to this week's video of Resting and Growing in Mark. We've made it to the very end of Mark. We're in Mark chapter 16, the final chapter. This chapter is only 8 verses long. I know that if you see this in your Bible, you look past verse 8, there's more stuff that continues, but there's a footnote there that says that most of that was added later, or that was probably added later. And I would agree that Mark ends, and it's supposed to end at verse 8. Let me just read the last few verses of Mark 16 for you. Entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe, and they were alarmed. And he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He's not here. See the place where he laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter that he's going before you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." And they went out and fled from the tomb, for trembling and astonishment had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. And that's where the gospel ends. And I think in many ways, this makes Mark's gospel one that is most relevant to us, for Mark was writing to people just like us. Mark was writing to us. Matthew, Luke, and John, they all include a resurrection appearance by Jesus. The disciples get to see the risen Jesus. They get to touch the risen Jesus. They see the nail marks in his hands and feet. They see the spear mark in his side. But in Mark's gospel, they get none of that. All they get is the promise. He's not here. He's risen. See the place where they laid him. All we get is the promise. You and I, we're not going to get a resurrection appearance by Jesus. We're not going to get to see, in this lifetime anyway, the nail marks in his hands and his feet, or the spear in his side. All we have is that promise that he has risen from the dead. And that promise is enough. That promise is enough to know that all that Jesus says is true. That promise reminds us that the one who made that promise will never break a promise. That's what I believe our comfort in this message. We have the promise of Jesus, and that's all that we need. Well, with that, we'll talk about Mark on Sunday morning, 8:30 in the Fellowship Hall and on Zoom. And then we'll starting next week, I'm going to revisit the idea, points from the park. We're going to spend a few weeks doing devotions from the park around the idea of fruitful. So have a great week. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.